Also, that needs to start. So that was very good. So I think people are coming on in. I always invite people to share what they're reading or what they've loved or what they always recommend to people. Anything along those lines. Books, also, always welcome. Short stories, magazines. Share it with us the things that you are loving and that you would love for others to read as well. And we're just it's a nice, wonderful group tonight um, with two delightful and charming authors. Um, we've been thinking about different adjectives for the evening, so we'll see what others come up. And yes, see the chat start to be activated. You all can also acquaint yourself with the Q&A box, which is probably, I see some things I'm reading actually popping in the chat. The Q&A box is probably at the bottom of your screen if you're on a computer. It may be hiding under more. I don't know why I put that in quotes. It's literally what it says. It's a circle that says more. And if you click on it, it can pop up there. So if it's hiding, check there as well. You'll want to utilize that Q&A box for any questions you may have, which you're welcome to drop into that box anytime through the evening, and we'll turn to those towards the end. If you put them in the chat, I will probably find them also, but I love to have them in the Q&A box. So hopefully you've all identified that. Yeah, thanks. Great to see people coming in from all over. Probably, yes, not probably, see. Sorry, I'm going to equate myself with the chat as well. All right. Ralph, I see that you're hearing an echo. Hopefully no one else is. We'll see if we can avoid that. Or you can just hear our tones twice, and we'll give some lag time. No worries if you're joining now, you have to leave early. This will be recorded and will be up at a later time. So great, no echo for Mark. So I'm going to trust that we're all good overall. And we will start. I just wanted to say hello. I'm Katie Freeman on behalf of Mystery Writers of America. Welcome to MWA University 2026 and happy Edgar's Awards Announcement Week, which happened earlier this week, 2 days ago, 1 day ago. 2 days ago. I can't remember what part of the week we're in. Actually, it happened yesterday. I'm going to put a link to the awards in the chat, along with Lori and Lou's website, so you can check those out. If you've missed previous MWAU sessions, you can find links to watch on the website under the Education tab. And today we'll be talking about mastering point of view with two superb writers, Lori and Lou, who I'll introduce in a moment. Just a reminder to drop those questions in the Q&A box. Thank you for sharing some of those reading suggestions. And now I'm going to start with introducing Lori. Lori Rader-Day is the Edgar Award nominated and Agatha Anthony and Mary Higgins Clark award-winning author of Wreck Your Heart, which is a USA Today bestseller just out this month a couple of weeks ago. So if you haven't all ordered it, you should do so now from your favorite mystery bookstore or request it at your library as well. So congratulations on that publication month, along with The Death of Us, The Lucky One, Under a Dark Sky, and many others. She earned an MA in creative nonfiction from Ball State University and an MFA in creative writing from Roosevelt University. She served on MWA's national board and is a past president of Sisters in Crime. She lives in chilly, windy Chicago, where she co-chairs the Crime Fiction Readers event Midwest Mystery Conference. And I'm going to drop the link to that in the chat as well, and teaches creative writing at Northwestern. As Sarah Presky has raved, Lori is one of the most creative and boldest voices in contemporary crime fiction. She constantly explores new territories and new viewpoints, which makes her the perfect expert for today's session. She was also born in Indiana and lived most of her childhood surrounded by cornfields, which is the same as me. So we share that in our biography. Lou Berney is the USA Today bestselling author of 7 novels, including Dark Ride, November Road, and his most recent Crooks, which came out September. So also get that from your mystery store, from your library. He has been awarded the Edgar, Hammett, Steel Dagger, Barry, McCavity, Lefty, Anthony, ALA, and Oklahoma Book Awards, and is a 3-time finalist for the Los Angeles Times Book Prize. Congratulations to you. Congratulations to me for being able to get through that sentence, which is fantastic. His short fiction has appeared in publications such as The New Yorker, Plowshares, and the Pushcart Prize Anthology. Karen Slaughter calls his work spellbinding, gritty, wickedly clever, and utterly addictive. Superior crime fiction with a global reach. He lives in Oklahoma City, and I learned from his website, which you can check out as well, that between the ages of 12 and 19, he was fired from approximately 9 different jobs, but that since the age of 19, he has not been fired from a job.
Nope.
I just want to highlight those accomplishments along with all of the book awards. So, Lori and Lou, it's fantastic to have you with us today. And we're going to get started with what might seem like an obvious question, but I think is actually not, which is what is point of view? How do you, what are the options? What does it look like? How would you define it?
Good question, Lori.
Yeah, I did offer to take this one. You're welcome, Lou. I don't think it's a bad question to start with because I think it seems like a really simple topic, but it's actually quite complex. Lots of options, lots of reasons to choose one option over the other, which we're going to talk about. But in the simplest terms, I think point of view is the direction and the distance from which a story is told. So direction and distance, right? That's two different things to consider. Um, but it also controls a lot about your story. So it's not just, oh, I'm going to make it, he, she, or I. It's more about what you want your reader to experience. So what the protagonist can see and know. A lot of that is up to which choice you make. But that also means what your reader can see and know, and how your story can be told. Lou, would you like to add anything else to that?
No, I would just add that's a great description. I would just add that for me at least, and I think for a lot of writers, it's the single most important decision you'll make when you write a story is the point of view. And so I think being aware that it's so important is crucial. Like Lori says, sometimes it seems like a rather simple decision, but it's so fraught in so many ways. It determines character, plot, everything. Um, so it's something that is just this wonderful tool we have.
I think it's worth mentioning that it because we most of us are probably writing mysteries. I think point of view controls how information can be revealed.
Mhm.
So how your unknowns can be discovered, which is a huge deal for us. And it also teaches the reader who to care about, who to root for, even maybe sometimes when you shouldn't. I saw somebody in the chat was reading Jim Thompson.
Mhm.
Jim Thompson teaches you to, care about characters, and then maybe you shouldn't. But the most important job of point of view is that it decides the experience that readers will have. So not just one choice, but a choice that sort of cascades down through your story.
I'll also add to that. It's not just reader oriented, it's author oriented. It determines how you'll experience your own story. And I think that's almost as important, like to think about it when you're picking your point of view is like, what's the way that I want to experience the story? Because a lot of times that's a misstep I've made. I picked the wrong point of view sometimes, and it might have been good for the reader, but it wasn't good for me necessarily as the writer.
Is that a certain project that you want to talk about, or
No,
no?
I don't
Oh,
talk
we're not
about
going to
my
give away all
failed
his secrets.
projects. Yeah.
Well, we can circle back to failure because Lou, I feel like that what you just said sort of leads us into a lot of the other questions that we had for the evening. And Laura, thank you for kicking it off with those definitions. I think as the description for this session said, point of view often is sort of the most like nebulous or thing that people don't think about that, as you both noted, controls so much for everyone, for reader and writer. Um, so I thought, it'd be great if we could talk about some of the opportunities and limitations of each type of point of view, but maybe also just to articulate what are those options? Are there others beyond what people might have thought of? How do you define those? So maybe if we can just name, let's start off with the benefits and pitfalls of first person. And when we say first person, what does that mean? First person from your protagonist, first person from someone else in the story? Like, how do you choose what is first person? How do you choose it? And what are the positives and the challenges of that point of view?
Sure. I'll kick us off, I guess. So first
Sure.
person obviously is the I character telling the story. and there's more than one version of that or variations on first person. Um, but I think the opportunities, we can start there. The main opportunity, two main opportunities for first person, single first person, is that readers love it. I know that there's some writers in the, I'm going to use the air quotes, literary area who think that first person is somehow a cop out. It's too easy. It's too simple. I don't think it is.
What? Tell
What?
that
I
to
know, right?
Faulkner.
It's
Tell that to
it is
William Faulkner, man. Yeah, that's stupid.
not. But
Sorry.
readers love it. It's a natural way to hear a story, to read a story. It's a natural way to tell a story. Whenever you're going to tell a story about your own life, you tell it in first person singular. And it's also an opportunity for a very voicey character. Lou, do you
Yeah,
have
I
any?
think did you finish? I'm sorry, I didn't mean
Yeah,
to
yeah,
cut you.
for
Yeah.
you.
No, I would say the voice is the determining factor a lot of times for first person if you're going to use it or not. If you have a character who's got a great voice, it'd be a crime not to write in first person, I would say. Other times, it's always not always an easy decision, but it's a great way to convey sort of the intimate nature of a voice and of a character. And I think that's another advantage of first person is it creates an intimacy that you can't get in any of the other points of view quite. I mean, you can get close to it in third person limited, but I think in first person, there's a sense of real intimacy with the writer and the reader and the story itself. And again, that can be a way to really just sort of like as a writer, I find when I write in first person, I lock into a story much more quickly because there's, as Lori said at the beginning, there's less distance. There's almost no distance between you and the events that you're recounting. So that's something that's a real advantage both to the writer and the reader, I think.
I'm going to jump in with a concept that I don't know if I stole it from somebody or if I made it up, but I tend to talk about the trade-off in point of view being between immediacy, urgency at the far end, so first person singular, um, down a spectrum, if you will, to distance, but scope. So you might gain, if you need scope, you might have to work your way down the spectrum, but it's a trade-off, right? So that you're getting distance um, if you are making that trade-off. There are reasons to choose all kinds of points of view that aren't this one, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, that first person singular is the most urgent, the most immediate, the most, um, it's like a shortcut to connect the reader to your story.
It's also, I mean, yeah, it's a way to just kind of, yeah, shortcut's a good way. You're really cutting through a lot of stuff to get to the heart of what you're writing. And I think I would say the disadvantage of it, since I was that part of the original question.
Yep.
Yeah.
Next.
One of the disadvantages of first person is if you have a character with a voice that is challenging to write or who doesn't have a natural built-in voice. So again, there's exceptions to all these, but like if you're going to write a child, there's some fantastic novels with a first person 5-year-old point of view, but that's really hard to do
Yeah.
for most writers. And so sometimes it's a little trickier, like picking a voice that's like, wow, I don't know if I can do that for 250 pages. So it depends on the character a lot of times because it limits you in terms of you have to speak the voice of the character without any kind of filter.
Like we as the writer have to stay in that voice for 200, 400 pages, whatever, but the reader also has to read that voice, and it might actually be too much,
Mhm.
right? If a reader doesn't like the specific voicey character that you have, the voice of the character you've chosen, it can be a real problem. The
Yeah, yeah,
other
that's a good point. That's a good point. Like, I didn't realize it. You run a little bit of a risk with first person because if the voice-driven character is a voice you just don't care for, then you're going to turn some readers off. That's a good
Yeah.
point.
The other limitation, I think, well, two. The next one I'm thinking of is, especially for beginning writers, I think it's really easy to get into the first person character, and then it's sort of an interiority.
Hmm.
It's a lot of interior thought, it's a lot of here's what I'm thinking. Meanwhile, the character's not doing anything. There are no scenes. I don't know if you've run into this sort of thing in your teaching, Lou.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's the
Um,
most common, the single most common problem, probably, I think.
I mean, I definitely used to do it
I
because
did.
you're just
I
figuring
never
things
did.
out. Yeah.
No.
No, yeah, I did. The other, let me think. Okay, so the other big limitation I think would probably be in the reveal of information. If you've got a first person narrator, then your first person narrator will need to be present for all the moments in which you are revealing information to readers. And that's not impossible. It's just a drawback. It's something that you will have to work out.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge. You never want to have, you never want to have such coincidence designed just to be able to impart information to your first person narrator. And it's hard to disguise or avoid altogether.
And then we were talking about how important the voice is for a first person narrator. I would say one of the limitations, one of the just areas you'd need to be concerned about if the voice of the character stays flat despite a first person point of view, that's a real problem. I think that's a huge problem, things that I've seen. Um, so it's an opportunity, but it can be a drawback if you really need to have a character, leaping off the page and it's hard to do,
Mhm.
stuff to do. Do you want to talk about some variations?
Yeah, well, I got one.
You got one? Go ahead.
Sorry, I'm gonna insert a couple. We have a lot of activity in the Q&A
Oh, okay.
already, and
Oh yeah,
so
give
I
us
might
questions.
just
Good.
sort of insert questions if they're very tied to what you're bringing up at the moment. And
Absolutely.
so, Lou, as for both of you, as you go into sort of different iterations, Margaret had asked about with a first person narrator who's not the protagonist or not the detective or not the, whomever. The example that Margaret gave was Watson to Holmes.
Mm,
I think we could think of many other examples as well,
yeah.
but does that does that have an impact? I know when you're thinking about, what's revealed, like not everything is known to that protagonist or that narrator. So is there a way that that complicates the question if you're considering first person?
Yeah, I mean that's a great question. I think there's a long history, literary history of first person narrators who are not the main character or are not the most interesting character. You think of Heart of Darkness, or you think of The Great Gatsby, or I mean you can go on and on. And there's really something to this idea of someone who's good at observing, a character who's good at observing and relating, but not necessarily the kind of character that pops off the page, which you want to be observed and um, related to you. And so that's one of the kind of things that factors into every sort of calculus when you're thinking about who your point of view character should be, your first person point of view character. Because again, it's not automatically the most interesting character at all. It's sort of like, you know, you you want each of your characters in the book to play the role they're best suited for. And sometimes with the narrator needs to be the best suited for that role. Is that right,
Your
Lori?
example,
You agree?
your example of Watson and Sherlock is an interesting one because I think can you imagine a story in which Sherlock is the first person narrator? He knows everything. There is no mystery to
Mhm.
Sherlock. So it would be a very short story if Sherlock was the first, what I mean? Like he already knows the answer, at least in the stories where Watson's telling it seems to me that he has already figured it out and he's sort of taking you along on a ride, but he's already got it. So as a first person narrator, first of all, he'd be insufferable. Like he's just not, always a likable kind of character. Although I don't believe that you have to be likable, obviously. Um, but I don't think that it would make for natural reveal of information in a mystery story anyway. I can see a lot of chat going on, but I don't know if I need to be paying
No, you
attention.
don't need to worry about it at all. Donald was just sharing that Conan Doyle actually wrote at least one story like that, possibly called The Lion's Mane or something like that.
It is no one's favorite.
I was going to say it's not what he's remembered for. So Sarah's sharing that maybe there's a couple of stories that Sherlock narrates, and yes, and as she says, they're not the best in the series, to put it mildly. So I guess that's what happens when you have Sherlock narrate. Maybe we
Mhm.
can continue to kind of move into like what third person. I think from what both of you already said, it's so clear how complex these questions are, and also that there's not, it's not just first person is your only option or just third person. We have a couple of questions about this as well, but maybe we could move into kind of third person as a whole. What does that bring, and what does that create in regards to challenges and to expansiveness?
Sure. Um, Before we move on to third, real quick, so you get first person singular, we've been talking about. We've also got first person multiple. You can actually have a more than one first person character sharing the story. You can also have first person plural. You can have a we chorus kind of trying telling the story. We Ride Upon Sticks by Quan Berry is one of my favorites. It's really, really well done. And then what we were talking about, the kind of Great Gatsby thing. I don't know if there's a specific phrase for that. I've been calling it first person secondary. So there's a
Mhm.
narrator who is
Yeah.
not your main character. It's not all classic literature. There's a book called Less by Andrew Sean Greer
Oh, yeah,
that
that's a great book.
that won the 2018 Pulitzer Prize, and it's a really great example of how to do it in a modern way.
Yep. Love that book. There's one other just to throw it out. And again, we're just, Katie, so sorry. We're just ignoring you apparently and
We'll
sticking
get
to
there,
first
Katie, we
person.
swear.
Oh
But
no, I'm perfectly happy to be the protagonist in the novel that no one pays attention to, and then comes in at the end.
but a really great first person that is really common and really useful is first person uh, retrospective. And it's sort of a first person writing about events in the past. And so, it gives away, that character's probably going to survive, but it also adds perspective and scope in a way that first person present can't do. So for first person retrospective, like I'm 80 years old and I'm going to tell you the story of when I was 12 and met Al Capone, is a different kind of vibe altogether, which can be useful in the right story.
I
That
am going
was
to
my
break in
next
there.
one.
I'm just going to mention that Hillary actually asked a question along those lines. That Hillary has written a short story with a frame narrator. In other words, there's two first person narrators. Do you think that can work? The example that Hillary gives is an elderly woman narrates a shocking memoir to a younger woman. So, Lou, kind of like the example that you were just giving. Um,
Sure, yeah, I think anything can work. And that sound
I mean,
there's examples of that. Yeah.
that's what To Kill a Mockingbird
Mhm.
is, right? It's
Yeah.
retrospective, nostalgic is what I was calling it. But yeah, absolutely will work.
And I'm
Um,
thinking also of Jennifer Egan's The Keep. I think I'm not positive about that one, about what the multiple retrospective. Anyway, but yes, I think anything can work. It just becomes more complicated sometimes to sort of balance that out. But if it's right for the story, it's right for the story.
okay, third person. We have
the third
arrived.
person, and we have enough to talk about that we could be here for an entire seminar, but we won't, unfortunately, sadly. So we'll go to third person, maybe move into second, also just talking about some of the pitfalls and
Yeah.
opportunities.
Okay, so we talked about distance, right? When you're choosing further down the spectrum, so you've got scope to play with, you've got distance to play with. But if you are choosing distance and scope, then you might want to use it for something. Um, the opportunities, I would say keeping secrets. That's the sort of thing that you can use your scope and your distance for. Lou, do you want to jump in with any opportunities for this?
For third person,
Yeah.
I mean, I just think third person allows you more latitude with the language you use, the voice you employ, and you can like third person limited is where essentially Lori can define it, but it's basically it's third person, but you're in a single character's point of view. So you can dip into their voice as needed, but pull back and use an authorial voice as needed. So it gives you just more latitude and freedom in terms of the language and sort of how the voice, how you're telling the story.
Third person closed limited or same thing. I mean it's almost like first person, but you do get a little bit of that leverage, I guess, to use things like misunderstandings, keeping secrets, narrative irony, just a broader view.
But you also can't, I mean, one of my pet peeves is the kind of cheat where I think if you're third person close or limited, we need access to everything in that character's head. And I get
Mhm.
really annoyed with books that like go third person limited and then close off part of that perspective. And it just seems that's like a cheat to me that, if you're going to go third person limited, it's the same as going first person. You got to give us complete access to that character's mind and perspective. And if you want to hide something, you've got to figure out a different way to hide it than just hiding it. Would you agree, Lori?
I do agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I do. I do have a lot of pet peeves that I think we're going to get to.
Oh, sorry.
Well, I didn't mention my biggest pet peeve in first person, but it's when first person narrators describe like the look on their own face, but they're not in front of it. You know what I mean? Like um,
Yes.
that's the failure of a first person point of view by the author. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Drawbacks of a third person. Do you want to start?
Well, I mean, the first thing I would say is there's more distance between the reader and the character. It's a built-in kind of like he said, she said is different than I said. And it's just sort of like that little bit of extra distance, a little bit less intimacy, a little less urgency, I think. But I think that can be overcome in a lot of different ways too.
Um, I would say you could also, in a third person, it'd be pretty easy to give away too much information, especially if you're giving, all the access just like a first person. Or I've read a book that had multiple third persons and it had a lot of repeating information, which just slows down the
Mhm.
narrative.
I'm
That's
just
a,
going to note that that's something that Laurel brought up in the Q&A, noting that there's many multiple POV mysteries coming out, the benefits and drawbacks, which I think both of you are speaking to. There's actually been a couple of different questions or comments about multiple point of views. And so I think it's something that folks seem to be noticing in what's coming out these days.
That's my jam probably is multiple points of view. Multiple third person close points of view is my favorite way of writing, I think. And like Lori says, though, there's so many dangers with it that it becomes, yes, thank you, Lori.
Yes, an
It
excellent
becomes
example.
it becomes very tricky to balance those points of view to make sure you're not repeating information, to make sure you're not giving away stuff that you need to, reveal in other points of view. And also to like just make sure they're distinct as the characters are, because even though it's third person, you still want a flavor from each perspective and each voice that differentiates them, I would say.
have
I'm
you,
just
Luke, have you ever used like third omniscient?
No, have I? I want to. I want to try that sometimes.
Yeah.
But I'm not
I
sure
keep
I actually have.
I keep trying just as an experiment because that's just the kind of sick person I am. But
Mhm.
it's not a natural way. So third person omniscient is that godlike narrator sort of looking down, and uh, that narrator can go into any character's thoughts, can do what most people would consider head hopping. It's allowed
Mhm.
because that's the distance and direction from which the story is being told. But
Can go into the future, can go into the past, can jump around in time. Like totally powerful. Yeah.
it's all powerful, but kind of, I think it's hard to pull off in modern storytelling. I think of the Russians, right? Like,
Yeah, I was just gonna say like Tolstoy, right?
if you want to see how that's done, go check out some Tolstoy.
Yeah.
A hot take for you there.
It's tough with
Um,
crime fiction to do something like that, I would just think, just because crime fiction is so much focused on mystery and surprise and thrills and scare. And it's just sort of like if you're omniscient, where does that come from?
yeah, where does the tension come from, and where does
Mhm.
the, that intimacy is all the way gone? So how do you make up for that? I think it would be tough.
For a beginning writer, when I'm beginning grad writers, I really try to, I usually try to say, do whatever you want to do and make it work. And that's great. But I try to steer them away for a first novel from an omniscient point of view because it's so fraught with pitfalls for a starting writer, I think.
Speaking of fraught with pitfalls, we have arrived at second person. What are your thoughts about second person, Luke Berney?
My thoughts on that is I read Bright Lights, Big City when it came out in 1987 or something, and I thought this is really cool. And so I wrote a story in second person. I was like, I'm never doing that again. That's a pain in the ass. So, but
I think
there's
we
some
all do
advantages to it.
one story in second
Yeah.
person.
But I mean, there's an advantage to it, I think, don't you? I mean, I don't know. I can't think of many books that are second person that I really got into, but
There's so the one book I could think of as an example for second person, and obviously that's the you are
Mhm.
telling the story. My reaction to you are doing this is immediately, no, I'm not. So I think that's a drawback.
Yeah,
Uh, it's stylized, right? I think there's a certain like that's the benefit that it's interesting, but I don't take to it personally. I think it's distant. I think it's unnatural. But I've seen it done well. There's a book called Notes on an Execution by Danya
oh
Kafka.
yeah, great
Yeah.
book.
And it won the Edgar in that year. So it's really well done, but it is notable that it is not all in second person. It starts in second person, it goes back into second person, but it's second and third mixed. So now we can talk about multiple points of view, the combos. What do you think about combos of points of view?
Like third and first
Third
in
and
the same
first,
book.
yeah. Have you done
Yeah,
it?
let me just interject into this some comments and questions that have come up, just so I make sure that we're sort of just seeing what questions we can attend to. And exactly what you just turned us to, Laurie, has come up a few times in questions about thinking about first and third person. Um, Sorry, let me just grab a couple of Vera had suggested had named a thriller featuring a rotating POV of three characters: third person, and first person. And just kind of those either like hybrid models, mixed models, moving between POV through the book. Do you have, so just to move into more of like, I guess what I would call hybrid models, and what you all may tell me what are actually called. And I'm just going to note also that Linda was sharing that Linda writes training educational manuals, and second person point of view works well for that. We're not sure if they're crime
Yeah.
training manuals, but that's good. So yeah, so thinking about like moving between having multiple, um, what does that give you? What is it take? You know, what are things that you have to be particularly attuned to if you are switching between POVs?
Lori?
So I actually have a book that does this. The Death of Us came out in
Mhm.
2023. It's got two third person limited close points of view, and then it has one first person point of view. Uh, and the first person is entirely interior, for reasons you'd have to read the book to understand. But um, I think it worked really well for that book. I don't think
Mhm.
it's the sort of thing that you do because you just want to try it. I think it's more like my story has a limitation. I have a limitation, or the information I need to protect or reveal is requiring me to have something that isn't just a standard point of view. In the case of The Death of Us, I was writing this book in which two characters were confounded by a crime that had happened 15 years ago, and I suddenly realized neither of these two people know what happened. So I need a character that does know what happened, but it has to be somebody who can't just immediately spill everything, right? There's no tension there. So that is the first person character who cannot speak is the person who is going to reveal to the reader over time what actually went down. But that was a limitation of the story that I came up with. Way to go, Lori.
Yeah.
Um, but I have chosen points of view based on my own limitations many times.
Yeah.
So Death at Greenway is my sixth novel. It is historical, set in 1941 England, something I will never try again. Um, and I knew that I would not be able to do a first person English 1940s voice to my own satisfaction. And so I knew that I was coming up on a third person situation, which I had at that point not written. So the book before Death at Greenway, I did third person to practice,
Mhm.
um, which is not maybe the best reason to choose it, but it worked. that was the lucky one. And because I chose that for that book, then I was able to explore the story differently than I would have normally. Death of Greenway, by the way, is 8 points of view, all of them third, except for one who's in first, and that is a child. So, and it was based on the real person that I had become friends with, who was a child in Agatha Christie's house during World War II. So I had her letter to use for all the phrasing. So,
Well, that's fantastic. Just a reminder that you can find all of Lori and Lou's books on their websites to go there for more updates. Some people have offered some other suggestions or questions, including Kate Atkinson's Jackson Brodie books, and thinking about multiple. Oh, Lou. Oh, there you are. Oh,
uh-oh.
oh. Okay. Well,
Uh-oh. Maybe
occasionally
he'll
this
come back.
happens where you're back. You're
Back.
back.
Don't
Good.
know what happened. I'm in a hotel room and I don't know what happened with the.
With MWAU,
Don't make me
these things
soldier on
happen.
without you, Lou. Come on.
I agree with
That was, I don't know
everything
which
Lori just
perspective of
said.
tension that was, but you definitely got it down. So
Sorry
talking about
about
Kate
that.
Atkinson's, but just the question of multiple third or omniscient, getting confused about what exactly omniscient means or what the difference are between those. And another comment in the chat about Colin Wash's Kala, which is in third person, and second person. So Lori, a little bit thinking about those multiple mixed points of
Yeah.
view too. But what is the difference between multiple third or omniscient?
I actually think that's a great question. I don't, Lou, do you have an answer for that?
Yeah, I think multiple third is just third person limited among multiple characters. So you're never getting outside character heads. In other words, there might be five character points of view, but they're all confined to each of those five characters' heads. Whereas omniscient is, like Lori said earlier, a godlike understanding of all the characters, all the world. It's outside the characters. So it can talk about a character's future. It can talk about the bad decisions. It can comment, have an opinion counter to the character's own ideas. So it's something that's outside the characters, whereas third person multiple is still in characters. There's just more of them. Does that sound right?
I think so. So, like I said, Death of Greenway has 8 points of view, and somebody called it an omniscient book, even though they are limited, the chapters are all limited characters. So I actually disagree with that. I think Death of Greenway is a
It's
third
just
place novel.
multiple points of view.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with multiple points of view. Like, trying to think, well, like Crooks. Crooks is
Multiple
multiple
points of view too.
third points of view, all very close, sequential, it's the same sort of thing.
I did want to second something Lori said earlier that I think the great rule of thumb is when it comes to what kind of point of view you use, whether it's two thirds and one first or one omniscient, whatever, it's just that you have a reason for doing it that is coming from the story and from the characters, that there's an intentionality about it. Like I think the only way you get into any trouble is when you're just sort of trying things for no real good reason. But if you have a reason for it, you can make anything work, I think.
Absolutely.
Uh,
One of the things we were going to talk about is like, how do you decide? How do you choose what your points of? I'm jumping on Katie's question, but and I have some questions. I don't know that you have to answer all of these things, but they're just suggestions of questions you might ask yourself that I have in a handout for when I teach about point of view. So things
Mm.
like, how long is your story? And the reason why that might be important, because if you're trying something that's a bit of a high wire act, like second person, a shorter piece might really work for something that is,
Mhm.
uncomfortable for you, uncomfortable for the reader. Um, that might be a place to try something,
Mhm.
really odd or interesting, or to just
Mhm.
test it out for yourself. Who has the most to lose in the story you plan to tell? That's not always the main character, but it's often the main character. Will one character witness all the most important information that your reader needs? Again, that's sort of like if you're limiting your character to one first person, they have to be privy to a lot of information for the reader to pick that up in a mystery. Um, how can I make the voice of my main character unique or interesting? We talked about voice being really super important to not just first person. I think third person also requires interesting voice. Um, Let's see. How much latitude do you need to show events and knowledge outside your main character's experience? If you need to show things that are happening elsewhere, then you'll need some way to do that. Um, how much latitude do you need to give in like sort of authorial opinions on things that are happening, like the Russians? How much
Mm.
of that do you want to give opinions on? How much distance and time do you need to cover the story? Um, yeah. And then the most important is what are the particular needs of your story? It's always about
Right.
what your story needs more than anything else.
Yeah, and it's about figuring out too. I love all those, and I think too, as a writer, you just got to think about what's going to get you excited about like opening the laptop every day. And so, what character's voice is most exciting to you? What characters do you want to be closest to? And sometimes something like that, determines the shape of the story rather than the reverse. But in either case, there's a conversation going on between the point of view choice in the characters and the story itself.
So, Lou, I went through your books today to see which point of view choice you made for each of them. Just a little homework.
Oh,
Long and Far Away Gone is third close, uh, alternating between
two.
mostly just two, but there's one at the beginning, right? In the
One at the very beginning and two at the very end. Yeah.
yeah.
Very short.
Uh, what?
They're very short though. Yeah.
They're short, but they're important. But it's not an omniscient book, so it's yeah. And then November Road is third close dual, right? No,
Three. 3 points of view.
three. What's the third one? Oh,
Bad
never mind.
guy.
I got it. I got it. I remember. Okay. And then at
Who
the
was the
end,
original? Who was the original? Originally,
main
November
character.
Road was the original main character was a mob hitman. And I tried writing that with a dual point of view with a housewife from Oklahoma who's leaving her husband. And there was good stuff, but that hitman was way too bleak. He was just sucking my soul dry to write like that much from that point of view. And so then I had the idea, oh, I can bring in this other guy who's a fixer, a non-violent, non-sociopathic guy as the other main character, and that way I can balance things out a little bit more. But again, that was trial and error, which again, as I mentioned before, I think is one of the most inefficient ways to discover your point of view, but often the best.
I'm also an inefficient writer, as we know.
Trial and error, man.
Um, you also in that book have an epilogue, I believe, with a
I do. That's right. Yeah.
different
I like
point
I
of view.
like I like epilogues apparently, don't I? I like
I like an
epilogues.
epilogue. Who
You
doesn't
do
love an
too.
epilogue?
I
Come
know.
on.
Come
We
on.
always want more. And then Dark Ride is first. Had you ever written a book in first before?
No, that was my first book that I wrote in first person. And so I was like, I don't know. I was during COVID and I was like, I need to just shake things up. And I thought I had a fairly simple story. I had a good character with a voice. I wanted it to be intimate and urgent. And I just thought there's a reason this needs to be first person. So I gave it a shot. But that was the first time I did that. Yeah.
Well, it's fantastic, obviously.
Thank you.
I'm a big fan of Hardly. And then Crooks, as we talked about, is third, close, multiple, sequential. Um, you've got a U very early on. You have one of your characters, maybe like a little bit of a narrator
Mhm.
talking directly to the reader. Anything you want to say about those choices?
I would say with that one, it's really third person close, and that's the voice of the character who tends to talk in the second person, which gets kind of
Yeah.
complicated, but on the page, I hope it just sounds kind of fun. But one of the things that, I mean, Lori does this too in her work, which I love. Um, Wreck Your Heart again, by the way, it's fantastic. It's might be my favorite of Lori's, all her books, which is saying something. Um, but like switching points of view is a lot of work. It's a lot of heavy lifting, but it can add a momentum and energy to a book that it wouldn't have otherwise. So that's another advantage to multiple points of view, I think,
Yeah. Rick Your Heart is first person, but she breaks the fourth wall and talks to the reader.
which is awesome, which I love that. I don't know what that's called. I mean, I guess it's called breaking the fourth wall, but
I
it's like
think
a
it's called direct address.
direct address, right? Yeah.
Yeah. In theater, it's break the fourth wall, but it was something that I had not done before. I've done first person, but I had never done direct address before. So,
It works great. It's when a character's speaking directly to the audience, and it's really nice. Yeah.
yeah.
In your book, I mean, it can be really nice in any book, but yours was especially really nice.
It's especially nice in my book. Thank you.
Yes.
Katie, do you want to move on to the next?
Yeah, we've got about 10 to 15 minutes left. So what I'm going to do, we had talked about sort of what happens when point of view is not working. How do you know? How do you fix it? So tips for revision. So maybe I'm going to put that question in both of your minds, but also draw in a couple of somewhat specific questions. Tom had asked about Tom's published in first person POV and agrees about the advantages for voice, but sometimes struggle with pace because it's harder to cut away to another character. How do you handle scenes and pace when you spend 100% of your time with the main character?
I would agree. It's tough because you're in just um, one mind. So I think you have to choose moments to go, to like shut down that character. It can be very intoxicating to spend every waking moment with a first person character, but that you don't have to. You can
Yeah.
choose when, when the blinds come down and we are moving on to the next day or whatever.
Yeah. Cut the shoe leather for sure. This goes for any kind of writing, but especially first person. I think you can get lured into that. Like, and then he walked to the store and then he went to the milk aisle and then I mean, and you can
Yeah.
just you can write much more kaleidoscopically or telegraphically and just sort of, flash through time and just skip big chunks of that daily life and kind of create your own rhythm and pace that way.
Also, a bit more of a specific question. Laura had shared that Laura's beta readers went bananas when I pulled back and did my authorial voice in my third person limited. They demanded that I remove it, and then had asked about the difference between third close and third limited.
They're the same. Third close and third limited are the same thing.
And it's
Um,
also, you also hear a third subjective. That's the same
yeah.
thing too.
So the different, I think it's a scale for third person. It's very, very close, almost to the point of being
Mhm.
a first person narrator, like right on the person's shoulder, all the way to omniscient. That's all third, but you can telescope in and out. So if you
There's
haven't,
also, yeah, I mean, there's also third person objective, which is like what I'm writing screenplays, and that's what we do. That's when you're not in the head at all. You're just writing what the character says and does. You still have a point of view character, but you do not have access to that character's head. So that's the most distant you can get, probably. Well, omniscience probably even more, but yeah.
omniscient is, yeah, pretty distant. But you can have a ethereal interjections into a third person that just makes it an omniscient story, I think, right? If
Mhm.
if the writer is being a narrator for their own story, it's allowed.
Right, right.
Don't let your writers group bully you around. Try things.
Yes.
I agree with that
Second.
as well. Laura also, either same or different Laura, now I'm forgetting, asks about the popularity of audiobooks. Has that changed how you think about first or third person? And Lou, maybe thinking about screenplays as well, writing for TV or film. Does it just feel like different things? Has it impacted for both of you how you think about your books, audiobooks?
Well, I wrote for TV and film a long time ago too, so I've been doing that my whole. Definitely informed what I do, and it makes me think a lot about one of the great things is, as Laura mentioned earlier, is sometimes it's easy to fall prey as a novelist to interiority, and you just spend all the time in the character's head. So writing film and TV is a really great reminder that characters have to do, and so that's like action, obstacle, concrete conflict is something that like I'm always thinking about. I think in a positive way and bring into fiction. So that's very helpful, I think.
As for audiobooks, audiobook audiobooks have definitely changed how I write, how I revise, but not so much necessarily for point of view, but maybe for sounds, for the way sentences are constructed. I read my books out loud to myself before that final, email to my editor to make sure that I can say things out loud so that my audiobook person can say things out loud. I wouldn't want to give them something that would be too hard to actually perform. I have
Mhm.
done it, I learned from it, and now I'm better.
Hmm. Well, I'm an old man and I don't understand audiobooks whatsoever. So I just don't think about any of this stuff. So Ah.
But we talked briefly about point of view not working, and I would love to talk a little bit about what that might look like. Lou, do you have anything that you're like, okay, this is when a point of view is not you mentioned because of November Road.
It just feels like, I mean, this sounds so stupid. I wish it was more helpful, but it just sounds like this sort of pain in your stomach or in my stomach. Like I just feel like this, it feels wrong. There's something wrong. And for me, 7 times out of 10, what's wrong has to do with point of view. Like I either picked the wrong point of view character or I'm too distant. I have a third person limited that's too far away or the language is off or something. But like I just feel something's wrong. And the first place I always look is point of view.
Mm. That's what's going on with my book right now.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh.
yeah, I can feel it.
Second person, baby. That's what
You
I'm
just
telling you. You got to do
no.
second person. Do it.
Or no. I think it might also look like if you are reminding your readers that they are reading, not that they're experiencing the story, but they
Mhm.
are reading. If you are reminding, if they're kicking them out of the story, that can be something you might notice as you read. Um, or your beta readers are reading for you, maybe more than you reading yourself. If your readers are confused about what's happening and how do we know this, that kind of thing, or if they
Yeah.
don't feel connected to the story, I think is the biggest part. If they don't feel connected to what's happening, the point of view is probably what's happening.
And if you don't feel connected too, I would just add that as well. I agree with everything Lori just said, but I also say if like you're feeling like I'm kind of bored by this, that's
Mhm.
not a good sign at all. Like that's something to do usually with point of view.
Yeah.
Leslie was saying it's not POV, but could you talk a little bit about using past versus present tense? But actually, I would sort of shift that question into does tense play a part in thinking about what point of view you're going to use?
I am mostly past tense. I don't really write in present tense because it bothers me as a reader. But I think, did you do dark ride in
It was
present?
first person present, which I'd been told never ever do. And I have a cousin who's a novelist and he hates it. Like, and I was just, and I dedicated the book to him actually. So it was really awkward.
That's
But
true love. Good
but
job.
it was just like it just felt right for that book. It was a very unreliable narrator in a lot of ways, and I almost needed to like make sure he felt like he was living in the present. Like he was a character who lived purely in the present, and so to do it not in present tense just felt off to me.
I think it would have felt a lot more formal than that character is. It would also limit you considerably in the story. It did not limit you what you chose. So I think your cousin is wrong.
Yeah, he forgave me. He's like, it's a good book, thanks. But yeah, no, I agree. I generally like I never get bumped by third person limited, but I do get bumped by, I mean, I should say I never get bumped by past tense, but I do occasionally get bumped by present tense. So there's a risk involved.
I think there is a risk, yeah.
Yeah.
But they can both work. I
Yeah.
think if you're worried about your character, I don't know, like if you're worried that you're giving away that your character survives the story by telling a story in past tense, then tell it in present tense. Try it anyway.
Right.
I'm just going to note that we're going to close in a few minutes, but there's been a lot of comments, suggestions, ideas in the chat and the Q&A, including Steve, who wrote, I wrote second person for 100-word flash fiction. Didn't really enjoy that. Thankfully, it was really short.
Mhm.
Hmm.
So lots of opinions about second person popping up. Christiane had asked about a reading list on the subject of POV. You've both given so many superb examples. It was great to hear Dania's book recommended because I used to work with her. Um, but a lot of great examples of different books to check out. Is there a craft book that you would suggest
Mhm.
or a craft session? Um, Not to
I
Uh,
put you
can't
both.
think of one off the
Okay,
top of
I
my
was
I
head.
gonna say
love
not to put you
craft
both on
books,
the
but I
spot.
don't know if I know if there's a good one on point of view specifically.
Um,
Um, I would say maybe A Swim in the Pond in the Rain by George Saunders, and that's going to make you read some Russians, by the way. But
and boy, that's a guy who knows point of view, baby. I just finished Lincoln in the Bardo, and you're like, talk about a tight wire. Wow.
yeah,
His new book comes
George
out very
Saunders.
soon.
No.
So One more, a couple more like just specific questions. Let me try to get to. Jenny had asked about with multiple first person, can you do one main character? Can you do have one main character doing present tense and the other in past tense?
I say you can do any combination. You can try it, see if it works for you, see if it works for your beta readers or your writing group. I don't think there are any rules at all. There are no rules. There are things you can try and things that will work, and sometimes there are things that will not work.
That's it. Whatever works. That's the rule.
Yeah.
So Sheila, I think that answers your question as well. Is it necessary to separate POV by chapter, or can you switch mid-chapter?
Definitely can switch.
If it works, it works.
Virginia Woolf switches in sentence sometimes, which is awesome.
Here,
Another
I
great
would say one
example.
caveat. Are we Virginia Woolf?
I'm not.
I'm not. I
But I'm
would
just saying,
say
like, if you can make it work,
if you can make it
absolutely.
work, and I think
If there's a
you
reason
have to
for it.
be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
Are you actually making it work? Like
And
have
is
some
there
people read it and make
and,
sure that it's working for them.
and is there a reason for it? Like, are you just doing it to show off, or is there the reason the story is about multiple threads of the same consciousness? Then, do that. But just for the hell of it, something that hard, I don't know if I'd recommend it.
I would not recommend it. I think what you're like skirting up against is confusion for your reader, which might be something that Virginia Woolf really liked to produce. But I don't know
Yeah.
that the current marketplace would support that. So we are not writing in the 1930s, we are writing now. So think about what the marketplace will support. But, be creative. Try some new things.
Yeah.
Yes, James Joyce. Yes, 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 James Joyce, blah, blah, blah. I'm sure it's great.
It seems like just underlying everything that you both have talked about tonight is that point of view is such an integral part to the experience of a book, both for an author and for a writer. And it feels like from all of the different questions you raised and all of the different possibilities that it's something that perhaps people don't spend as much time thinking about as they need to. Does that feel accurate? Yeah.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
well, I wanted to end with a couple of lightning round questions, which is to say you can just answer them very quickly. We've been through a few already, but I wondered if there it was a point of view you'd like to see more writers use.
Hmm. I think third limited in crime fiction. I think we see a lot of first person, which is great. I love first person. Um, but you can get nearly as close, and it's just something else to try.
Yeah. I'll second that.
I wonder, does this point of view get easier the more that you write, or does it remain complex and tangled with every story you begin?
It gets easier. I didn't know how to write third person limited at all when I was in grad school, and I labored over it for like 2 years, and now it's like breathing to me. So I think it does get easier.
I don't know that writing books gets easier,
No,
but maybe some of the tools get to be more natural in your hand.
I was going to ask, so two more quick ones. What's next for both of you? You've both had recent books out, very recent or in the fall. What's coming up next?
it's working on new stuff.
Yeah, I have a very, very terrible draft that I'm going to have to fix by next book. It is a pile of words that needs to be turned into something better.
Well, I trust that
And
you'll
it
be
might
able
be
to
a
do
point of view
it.
problem, as I said.
And I wanted to just end with both of you have actually done this throughout the conversation, but what's one thing that you particularly love about each other's work?
Aw.
I would say the energy of Lori's work, no matter what kind of book she's writing, and her books have such a diversity, the energy and momentum of her books never lets me down.
Well, I use Lou's books all the time when I teach, pulling out, a scene to illustrate, beautiful language or the way he just makes like sentences really sing. So jealous. It makes me so mad.
Thank
He's
you.
too good.
Thank you.
Well, it's a beautiful place to finish. I've left in the chat again Lori and Lou's websites where you can check out all of their work, as well as MWAU's sessions, and the Edgar Awards, which will give you an even longer list of books to read with, I'm sure, a great variety of point of view. Can think about how it works in all of those as well. Thank you both so much. It's such a pleasure to learn from your expertise. And thank you to everyone who joined us this evening or is joining us later on to watch this conversation. So, with lots of gratitude, I'm wishing everyone a good day.
Thanks,
Goodbye.
Katie.
Thank you so much, Katie.
Thanks, Lori.
Bye, Lou.